What's going on, Port fans? Welcome back to another video on my channel, and today we're going to be reviewing the 2020 season of Port Adelaide and what was a historic year for the club in their 150th season of Port Adelaide. And it's been a remarkable story since the beginning of the very first year all the way to 150 years, and what a better way to finish, to celebrate the successes of previous years by finishing as minor premiers for the 2020 season in the AFL. Unfortunately, we couldn't quite get the job done, getting knocked out in the prelim final against the eventual premiers in Richmond by a goal. Finishing third for the season overall. It was a pretty damn good year to be a Port Adelaide supporter, and we're going to look through the year and have a look and see what exactly stood out the most, the best player that I've nominated for the season, and the moment that captured everyone's eye. So we'll get straight into that. Let's review the 2020 season for Port Adelaide. Let's start with the moment of the year. Now, there was countless amounts of brilliance and class on the field by players, whether it was a goal, whether it was a mark, a tackle, or anything that set up or provided the scoreboard for the scoreboard to tick over for Port Adelaide. We had so many standout players like Zach Butters. We had players like Charlie Dixon, Trent McKenzie, Tom Jonas. They all stood up and were just fantastic additions to the season. And, well, they provided what was a pretty positive story for 2020. But the moment that stood out the most, it wasn't the qualifying final win against Geelong. It wasn't the round 2 showdown in the prison bars. It was Port Adelaide versus Carlton in round 7, and Robbie Gray was the man of the moment.
He couldn't quite. Out wide, Mays. Back in AFL footy. The kick was good. The mark was better. And it's Robbie Gray. Everyone else but Robbie Gray is now a spectator. The siren will sound. The game is on his boot. He is the man in the arena. And all eyes are on Robbie Gray. And when everyone else missed, when the moment came, he seized it like no one else. Robbie Great!
Countless of other moments were celebrated throughout the year as well, and I'm pretty sure when we look back at the highlights and certain points of the year, there were some fantastic moments created by players like Charlie Dixon's goals and marks, Robbie Gray in other stages. Certain players did stand up in season 2020, some more so than others. Zach Butters will get an honourable mention. Trent McKenzie certainly deserves high praise for his season. Tom Jonas was sensational wearing the number 1 as skipper this year, and I feel like even Tom Rockcliffe in the middle, Ollie Wines, the second half of the season in particular, was just fantastic. Sam Powell-Pepper was really impressive this year. And, you know, there was countless amount. Brad Ebert as well in his final season for Port Adelaide. They were all fantastic. But the Pear's Player of the Year for 2020 has to go to the one man, finished second in the Brownlow, and he's probably going to take out the BNF for Port Adelaide this year. It's my man, Travis Boak.
On the ball. He's done that a lot tonight, Scotty Lysette. Went out of Hackett forward. Motlop cleared a path. Robbie Gray, look at this. Travis Boak, goal coming up. As easy as it gets for Port Adelaide.
What a season he had. He was just the best midfielder on our side, the most consistent all season, and it was showcased with an All-Australian for the 3rd time in his career. Vice captaincy in the All-Australian squad, 2nd in the Brownlow medal, and he was just so important throughout the year. And what a story Travis Boak's been. He's just a fine aging wine at the moment. And it's just, as a guy that absolutely loves him and looks up to him as a player and as a person, when you try and model yourself around someone, it's going to be Travis Boak. And off the field, he's sensational. He's very consistent on the field. And there's just so much respect and love that I think every Port Adelaide supporter, member, player, staff member, anyone that's involved in the community of Port Adelaide, and even outside as well in the AFL community, we respect Travis, and He's certainly been a fantastic player this year and deserves all the praise and credit that he gets. So he is the 2020 Player of the Year. Let's talk about the season. We finished top of the ladder, only losing 4 times this season. We lost to Brisbane, we lost to St Kilda, and we lost to Geelong, and we also lost to Richmond in the prelim final. It was a tough year for Port Adelaide, I feel. In the 150th year, the biggest challenge of all was relocating to the Gold Coast in the hub for the first, from round 3 to all the way to round 8. First home game wasn't until round 8 against St Kilda. Obviously, we played the showdown here in front of 2,000 people when we resumed playing in June. But our first game against the Gold Coast in the Gold Coast pretty much set the standard for the first 4 games. We were pretty consistent over that period, beating Gold Coast, beating Adelaide, beating Fremantle, and beating West Coast. Losing to Brisbane was unfortunate, playing at the Gabba. Going through it, we also, we had moments of the season where I guess it was the first time in a long, long time that I've actually felt pretty comfortable tipping us every single week. And that set in around about the time when we bet GWS in round 6. I felt like, we were capable of beating, if we were capable of beating a GWS side, which at the time was in really good nick, to knock them off in a pressure game that game was, going into a game against Carlton, we were doing day trips. We were getting up at 4 a.m, flying to the ground, preparing to play the game, and then coming back home. A fly in, fly out, which is going to take so much out of you when you do it consistently. We did it twice in a row. To come back to Adelaide, beaten by a St Kilda side that was pretty competitive. And then you just move into the second half of the season. You just start to build a bit of momentum. And it wasn't really until we lost to Geelong that I felt it was sort of a wake-up call. We bet Richmond the week before, and that was sort of the pinnacle game for us. That's where everyone switched on and said, hey, Port Adelaide are the team. This is why we're first. A game ahead. Our percentage was unbelievable. To get knocked off by Geelong the next week pretty convincingly was sort of definitely a smack back to reality. And I think that put us in really good stead. A positive out of that is it reset us a bit. And we played against Hawthorn the week after. Only just bet them. Scraped across the line pretty convincingly against Sydney. We were sort of building. And then we bet North Melbourne. Bet the Bombers. And we bet Collingwood in the last game. And the season itself was pretty consistent. We had one outlier against Geelong. We made up for that against them in the qualifying final, and that was a monkey off the back for Port Adelaide. And it all came down to a pretty consistent message at the start of the season where Ken Hinkley said, we're coming. We're here to win the premiership, and we're not going to shy away from that. We know what's at stake for both Ken and the playing group and the club in 150 years. We knew what it was at stake this season, and I'm really proud of the fact that we were able to, as a collective, it was pretty hard with the whole COVID-19 situation. You're relocating in a hub, you're away from your families a lot, you're traveling here, there, everywhere, different time zone, different times of playing each game, and just adjusting to every challenge that came every single week. And us as fans, we couldn't go to games in the first half of the season because, we were playing in the hub, and everyone in Queensland that was a Port fan was lucky enough to attend. And, it was just a pretty inconsistent season. And to have your team, Port Adelaide, be a consistent, reliable performance every single week, it's sort of for, everyone else in our lives, it became a consistent factor. And that was, to provide joy. And Port Adelaide did that this season. So, regardless of the result, getting knocked out in a prelim, I think if you look at it purely in footy terms, you're pretty disappointed because you would have thought maybe finishing top, getting knocked out in a prelim, you'd make the granny, especially playing at home. And the challenge was there, and unfortunately we didn't take it with both hands. And I think overall, you look at the season, you look at the development that we've had from players. Mitch Georgiadis is a massive standout. Sam Powell-Pepper continues to grow. Dan Houston's just being another fantastic addition. We had all Australians in Charlie Dixon, Darcy Byrne-Jones and Travis Boak, with Zach Butters and Tom Jonas making that squad. And Zach Butters has been huge. And it's just these good luck stories of Trent McKenzie getting another opportunity and making it and really standing on his own 2 feet. That is such an impressive factor to come back from basically being on the list of the listings, making one last gasp, and he did that. And there's countless amounts of others that took their opportunities and really contributed to what was a season that was pretty hard. And Boyd Woodcock's got a great future. Kane Farrell, we saw glimpses again. And then you've got your Bulls. You've got your Tom Rockcliffes who stood up, and we saw the Tom Rockcliffe that we know plays pretty consistent and good footy, and that's why we got him from Brisbane. Ollie Wines is in his prime and is really standing up as a vice captain. Hamish Hartlett his leadership was sensational. Didn't probably have the output that a lot of people come to expect from him, but in saying that, his leadership is next level, and he had a really consistent and good season. And players like Scott Lysette battled through injuries, were able to stand out. And I'm not going to forget Pistol Pete Laddams. He came out of nowhere and really stood out as a ruckman and really gave us another dynamic. And it's a real credit to him, because even though we had pretty stupid situations with the COVID breaches earlier in the year, he still stood out and he still made up for that, and he was a pretty consistent performer. So there's countless amounts of other players across the board that really stood out, and we can list many others, but I really feel, I feel for the ones that are leaving, and you've got the Atleys, and you've got I can't remember the other guys that were unfortunately delisted, but to see Justin Westhoff retire, see Brad Ebert retire. Brad Ebert went out on his own merit, and I really, really respect that, and I'm really glad that he did, because he's a warrior and will always be remembered for his hardness and his commitment to the Port Adelaide Football Club, the same as Justin Westhoff. These are two blokes that are just magnificent players, magnificent people, and will always be Port Adelaide. So to see players develop and become very much a part of the Port Adelaide community, even more so now with these two legends leaving, it's a great development for the club, and we're in a really good position going into 2021. So I can't wait to see who we draft, who we trade in, and I'll make a video on that as it gets closer to the date, which I think is next week. So just be prepared for that. But a sensational season from both the playing group and Ken Hinkley. I must mention him because the Coach of the Year, voted by his peers, absolutely sensational. To come from 10th, finish top, get knocked out in a prelim, but get that final win I think we all wanted, is a massive tick for me. And I'm very much happy to see him coming back next year with this playing group, because I reckon we're destined for the next step in 2021. To grade the season as a whole, 2020, the 150th year of Port Adelaide, I'll give Port and the club, the community, and everyone involved an A. You can't give it any less. You can't give it any more, because it was just a consistent season. We finished top, minor premiers, and we're so close to making a granny. And I reckon, I hate to say it, but if we bet the Tigers in the prelim, we're winning that grand final. But it's what ifs. So we can't look at that too much. We've got to look forward to 2021, because 2020 was a massive building step for more to come. Thank you so much for watching this season review of Port Adelaide for the 2020 season, our 150th year. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this season. What's your grade for Port Adelaide, and who was the standout player for you this year? Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new, for plenty more Port Adelaide and AFL content coming your way this off season. It's going to be a massive pre-season coming up. Different situation, this one, coming out of the COVID year. We'll have plenty more to deal with, I'm sure, with those situations as it comes. But for now, let's talk off-season. Congratulations to Richmond for winning the 2020 AFL flag. A massive, massive achievement, and they very much deserve that. Make sure, as I said, subscribe to the channel, like the video, let me know what you think below. My name's Anthony, and as always, can the pair.